Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Square Enix announced a new harassment policy this morning that at least appears to go further than any harassment policy I've seen devs announce previously. And it's definitely got some people concerned. And I think it's going to be an interesting question as to whether or not other devs follow suit and start drawing hard lines. So even though we haven't really covered Square Enix games on this channel, I thought it made sense to go ahead and do a video and dive into it because there are definitely other devs who make games that we do cover who might also end up being impacted or change things based on this as well. So it's worth us being aware. Let's go ahead and dive in. So first, what's actually in the policy? I'm going to give you this information based on an article on Video Games Chronicle, and of course, I'll leave a link down in the description so you could go ahead and see this yourself. New Square Enix policy aims to protect employees from toxic fans. Square Enix says that should it find that an individual has engaged in harassment, we reserve our right to cease providing support services or to refrain from providing our group's products and services. So of course, Square Enix does make single player games such as Final Fantasy series that it would be difficult to stop the service for. You know, you purchase it and then you have access to the game. But there are other games that are multiplayer and they have their fingers in a bunch of different pots where if they decided, hey, you're cut off and you can no longer play this anymore, it actually would be a big deal and would have a significant impact on those fans. So this could definitely be impactful. Now, moving on, the policy reads, there are instances where certain customers take actions directly or through our support centers or toward our group executives, employees, partners who are involved in the creation and distribution of our group products and services that constitute customer harassment, such as denial of personality, violence, defamation, intimidation, advance notice of wrongdoing, advance notice of obstruction of business, harassment. It continues, such actions do not only prevent our employees and partners from engaging in their work with a sense of security, but also causes disruption to other customers. Square Enix will not tolerate harassment and will take action as necessary. And they do go on to describe more of the harassment they want to see stopped. So acts of violence, behavior, abusive language, defamation, persistent inquiries, repeated visits, trespassing, unlawful restraint, discriminatory speech, that's a big one, infringement of privacy, and sexual harassment. Now, what is not in this article that actually makes this policy, in my mind, a big deal is that they do directly mention they are willing to take legal action based on harassment. So I can remember in other policies, it was basically more so, we're not going to allow you to buy games. We're not going to allow you to play games. We can ban you, all that kind of stuff. I cannot remember legal action being at the forefront. Like, yo, we are absolutely not going to tolerate this and we'll take you to court if we feel like this is an issue. It's definitely ruffled some feathers. Now, the question becomes, why? Why is this happening? Why do they feel the need to update this harassment policy, and why do they feel the need to drop a hammer like this? And the reason might actually surprise you. It's because of shippers. This is not, this in my mind at least, this really has nothing to do with who some people probably thinking of like Grums or Endymion or any of those people. I don't feel like it's really about them. This is really a problem that is specific to Square Enix, but how they're choosing to deal with it could potentially have a ripple effect. Now, if we go further in the article, they talk about it a little bit more. Final Fantasy voice actors have previously taken to social media to condemn harassment they received in the wake of story choices. Brianna White, who voices Aerith in Square's Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy, which I haven't played yet, but I've heard great things about it, I definitely do plan to play it, posted on X to politely request that aggressive shippers relax. When my sibling and I would fight as kids, my mom would tell us to touch noses until we inevitably started giggling and got over it. I say this with love. FS7 shippers need to touch noses. We're all the same family and loving these characters, so relax. Now, some of you might not know what shippers means. Shippers is basically like, some of you might be more familiar with the Mass Effect series, right? So you've got Shepard, you've got Ashley, you've got Tali, right? And you've got Liara. There'll be some shippers who are hyper aggressive that Liara is the only real choice. Everybody should be signing with Liara. The developers should be prioritizing Liara. And they make a huge deal of speaking about this publicly, directing comments towards devs, things of that nature, right? In an innocent way, it's supposed to be a manner in which they can show passion about the game and show passion about a particular character. But obviously that can turn very ugly, especially if they feel like whatever relationship they value the most isn't being valued appropriately in their mind by the devs. It can get really, really ugly, turn into harassment, and it's absolutely gotten out of control when it comes to the Final Fantasy VII remake series. There have been death threats, there have been just harassment and really, really awful stuff. It's talked about a little bit more in this tweet here. Square Enix did this, meaning the harassment changed, because Tifa's fans, they told the admin of Final Fantasy VII page to kill themselves. Tifa's fans also attacked Nojima and told him they are going to kill him. And there's a whole thread about it that kind of details a lot of the harassment that has been directed towards these people. It's ugly. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it gives you an idea of what's going on. This is the real reason why Square Enix is doing it, right? But like I said, it could have a ripple effect. Other devs could look at this and say, why aren't we treating this harassment more harshly? Why aren't we bringing legal action towards some of these people who we believe are harassing our devs? And so even though some of the usual people that you might think of, I don't feel like they're really being targeted by this policy harassment update. They're absolutely taking it offensively and reacting as if they're being targeted. And it's kind of interesting to watch. Of course, Grumps put out a post about it and said, Square Enix has lost it. Are these what they consider taking legal action on? Some is valid, but comments on the internet, unreasonable demands for change? Seriously? Let me know if this is their list. It definitely is. Need confirmation. So he feels like, hey, this is a step way too far. You shouldn't be able to enact a policy that leads people to believe they could be legally sued based on comments that fit in this description. Now, in my mind, this is what lawyers always do, right? Lawyers will purposefully make things kind of vague and open-ended where their clients can do whatever they want. Hey, I can sue you for any reason that has anything to do with my content. And then let the judge decide that, well, no, this suit is frivolous, or no, you can't do this, right? They want to make sure Square Enix has as much room as possible to take somebody to court if they decide that they want to take somebody to court. And, you know, to some degree, I'm torn on this, right? I certainly don't want a bunch of people feeling like they can't be critical without being dragged into a courtroom and spending a gargantuan amount of money just for sharing their opinion. At the same time, I think it's pretty obvious for most of us that things are out of control, that devs are being treated in a manner that is just unacceptable. I already did a video late last year about a content creator who told BioWare devs to kill themselves over the content in Veilguard, and then they got temporarily suspended by EA, and then Grumps retweeted that person and basically said EA had no right to suspend her. It's stuff like that where I'm like, you could be sued over this. And of course, Indy Mian feels very similarly. So he says, terrible idea on Square Enix's part. This is how people end up boycotting your games. Horrible precedent that could snowball very quickly. Guess we'll see, but gut reaction is this is bad. Nobody's boycotting Final Fantasy because they're suing people who Square Enix says are harassing their devs. That's not happening. That's just not happening. Like there are some devs who I feel like can't do something like this. I don't think Ubisoft can do this. I don't think Ubisoft can say you all are treating us terribly and we're not going to take it anymore and blah blah blah. Their reputation is so in the trash right now that nobody's going to take them seriously. Nobody's going to believe this. Square Enix can absolutely do this. Their core fan base doesn't care anything about what's going on Twitter. To be frank with you, my opinion, CDPR can do this. CDPR, when it's time for Witcher 4 to come out, can absolutely say, we're not going to accept this harassment. We're not going to accept our female employees being spoken about and treated in a certain manner. If we decide that what you're doing goes to a level of harassment, we'll take you to court. And I think it would have very little impact on Witcher 4 sales, to be honest with you. Very little impact on Cyberpunk 2 sales. These games are going to sell like hotcakes regardless. And then finally, Smash JT, absolutely of the same mind. This is actually crazy and can set a very dangerous precedent. Not so different from the one Elisa Mercante is trying to set with her lawsuit against me for daring to cover the game industry. Square Enix is doubling down on DEI and going on the attack with lawsuits against gamers they deem too offensive. This is not about DEI. This ain't about black people. This ain't about too many women in games. This is about some of their fans love their female characters way too much, and it is causing them to come out publicly and say things regarding some of these devs that absolutely should not be said. I haven't followed the lawsuit between him and Alyssa Mercante. She was previously associated with Kotaku. She had a major leadership position there, but I can't remember what it was. But they've had a lot of going back and forth because of Smash's content regarding being anti-woke, being anti-DEI, all that sort of stuff. But basically, these are the type of people who definitely feel attacked by what Square Enix has done, right? Whereas I've been very critical regarding some properties. I was very critical regarding Veilguard. I don't feel attacked by this harassment policy. If Bioware put in place a similar policy, I wouldn't say, oh man, my content needs to significantly change, because I stick to just dealing with the game and just dealing with the content that's in the game and how I feel about it. I don't go the extra mile of, well, let me attack the devs. Let me attack individual devs. Let me let you know this person should kill themselves. This person should never work on a game again. This person should be followed and harassed, and anything that they're associated with, we should tear it down because we need this person out of the industry. I don't do all that. And some people obviously do. And consequently, the idea of harassment resulting in legal action is frightening for them. And then finally, since Alyssa Mercante was mentioned, she actually spoke out about this as well. She said, if you're angry about Square Enix enacting a sweeping policy against harassing their employees that includes taking legal action against perpetrators, you might be a harasser. Again, I'm not of one mind about this. I don't want to create an ecosystem where the devs are basically able to dictate what can and cannot be said, but everything has limitations. Everything has limitations, and I do not believe that just because I have a YouTube channel or just because I have an account on Twitch that I should, account on Twitter or a Twitch account as well, that I should be able to just say whatever I want about whoever I want, and nobody should take legal action. There should be no consequences. Hey, this is all just free speech. It's not just free speech. It's not free speech that allows you to sit in front of thousands of people and say such and such a person should kill themselves because you don't like the way they wrote a particular character or a particular sequence in the game. It's not okay for you to, for a dev to lead a project like the Concord game, which failed, which was terrible. And then they try to go anywhere else, do anything else, and you're following them and putting up pictures of them and say, oh, this person is trying to get involved with this. Make sure that gets shut down. We don't want this person anywhere in the industry just because this person made a bad game. It's not okay. It's not okay. This is harassment. And you're trying to essentially prevent these people from being able to put food on the table. I'm not with it. I'm not with it at all. So I personally, I can be very, very critical regarding games, regarding devs. I don't feel targeted by this harassment policy because there's a difference between being critical, providing constructive criticism, and straight up harassing people and trying to make their lives hell. And the second one is just not acceptable. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Thought you all might find this interesting. Again, we might see more devs taking on these types of policies. So figured it was something most people want to be aware of. Hope you all enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.